Hey everyone, and welcome back to another chapter, The Darkened Night, written by me, Stacey Holt. As always, if you're enjoying the series so far, why not subscribe, like, and comment? That way, when I upload, you can be notified, and also be one of the first ones to hear them. Anyways, as for my voice actors, Cat Noir and Adrien will be voiced by Diz. I'll be voicing Marinette, Ladybug, and the narrator. Again, please go check him out. He's such an amazing voice actor and deserves so much credit, especially working with me. But anyways, here we go. Chapter 3. Marinette swallowed, examining the figure in front of her. Besides the spine-chilling gaze it gave her, the figure was rather beautiful. Though she learned in school, the more beautiful something is, the more deadly it is. That goes for animals, insects, flowers, and in this case, this woman. Marinette began to open her mouth to answer the woman's question, though thoughts flooded her mind. What could she say? A bang beside her caught her attention, as it was the door she had locked only moments prior. It swung open with another bang, breaking the door off its hinges. When Marinette swung her head around, there was Cat Noir. He had a bit of fright on his face, but also determination. She saw as his eyes fixed on her, and instantly they turned to relief. Though worry soon overwhelmed him, as he saw the figure near Marinette. She saw the horror that was in his eyes. Ever since they became heroes, he was always fond of her, and the worry and anger those eyes had showed it all.
Run, now! I'll handle this,
he instructed, now watching as the woman's gaze now focused on him. Marinette took a sharp breath in, mentally preparing herself to run. She stood up, praying the woman wouldn't kill her on the spot. Though as she stood up, she noticed the woman had no interest in her anymore. She was fixated on Cat Noir, her eyes glued to him. He was the only person in the room with her in her eyes. He was the only target. He had a Miraculous that the akumatized victim wanted. Marinette took a few steps, watching carefully as the woman did nothing to prevent her escape. She ran towards Cat Noir, her unconscious worried thoughts flooding her mind. The woman was there to kill him. She had already killed Sabrina. She needed to find a place to transform and make it back to Cat Noir before he succumbed to the same fate. "Okay, be careful," she said faintly, creating a bit of tension as she ran by. Marinette quickly ran past him as he gave a soft smile, glad that he had found her. Though as she ran down the darkened hallway, her relief turned to worry. She needed to transform and help her partner. As she entered a nearby room, she transformed, hoping no one saw. Though someone finding out her identity was the least of her worries at the moment. Her partner's safety was the main priority. A few seconds passed and no sounds were heard after her transformation. Strange. She assumed she would have at least heard some sort of commotion coming from where Cat Noir and the strange woman would be. He was rather loud and rambunctious when fighting, jumping around and breaking things unintentionally. She quickly ran back towards where Cat Noir and the figure were. Thoughts of something happening to him flooded her mind. She hoped nothing had happened. Her hurried footsteps seemed to echo through the hallways as she let a few breaths escape her lips, trying her hardest to get there in time. As she hurried closer to the room, she heard a blood-curdling scream that made her heart sink. She felt her breathing become unsteady, knowing that Cat Noir must have been hurt. Her heart pounded, and she felt like she couldn't breathe. The images of Sabrina lying on the cold wooden floor shot through her mind. What if Cat Noir was hurt? Or worse, this was her fault. She shouldn't have left him. Her mind was racing. She tried to push the negative thoughts from her mind. What could the figure do? They were transformed after all. They couldn't hurt them, could they? Yeah, they were practically indestructible. This rational, hopeful thinking made her a little more relaxed as she came upon the door where the scream had come from. She gripped the handle, unable to hear any movement of anyone inside. If she hadn't known they were inside earlier, there would be no indication that there was life behind the door. Or she hoped there was life behind the door. She opened the door, and to her horror, she saw Cat Noir lying on the ground in a little pool of blood. The figure was stepping backwards away from Cat Noir, smiling a wicked grin. Her eyes began to fill with tears, thinking he had succumbed to the same fate as her friend earlier that night. She ran over to him. She watched as the figure quickly disappeared without a trace.
Cat! Are you okay? Talk to me!
She cried, picking him up around her shoulder to try and get him out of the room. But he didn't respond. She saw him breathing heavily, and he was struggling with the pain that the red liquid was pouring out of. This only intensified her worry, as he had not given her a response. She held him and hurried their way through the passing corridors until she felt they were far enough away that they were no longer in immediate danger. Ladybug looked around at their new surroundings and saw that they were now on the 3rd floor of the hotel in a random room of her choosing. She laid him in her lap, hearing his erratic breathing. To her surprise, she started to relax as she knew he was still alive. But for how long, she had no idea. She needed to get him to wake up and be conscious. But how?
Cat, please!
She cried, brushing his hair out of his face, only to find blood coming out of the corner of his lips.
Miss me, m'lady?
He managed to say through the pain, barely opening his eyes to see her. Ladybug looked at him with tears streaming down her cheeks, glad that he was now awake.
I'm so glad you're awake. Let me see what happened to you. You're not in good shape.
She insisted, trying to locate where the blood was coming from.
I'm in perfect shape. I eat a balanced meal every day.
He smiled through the pain.
Cat, stop joking around. You're really hurt. Move. I need to see,
she replied. Cat strained as he turned his body slightly, showing a huge cut on his side, ripping through the shirt part of his suit. It looked deep. There was a lot of blood pouring out of his side, and without action, it would take a fatal turn rather quickly. Ladybug tried to hold her frightened gasp, but he heard it anyway.
Does it really look that bad?
He tried to joke again, but his face churned with pain.
Cat, this is serious. Stop joking. You're hurt extremely bad. Do you think this is a game? It's not, okay?
Her harsh words cut through the tense air around them as they stared at one another in the thick darkness.
Sorry.
He apologized, knowing she was worried about him.
Stay here. I need to find something to close that up,
Ladybug said, helping him off of her so he could lean against the nearby wall instead of her lap. Ladybug stood up and took out her yo-yo, using the light to help navigate her way through the darkness. As she made her way through the room and into the bathroom, she rummaged around under the sink until she found a medkit stashed in the very back. What a lucky break. At least Chloe's father was smart enough to make sure each room was provided with the medkit. She quickly made her way back to Cat Noir, whose breathing was still erratic and worrisome, regardless of the jokes he made to help lighten the mood. She knew he was trying to joke around to make the situation less extreme, though the thought of him dying? No, she couldn't think that way. As she made it back to him, the blood was starting to seep onto the floor around him. He was losing a lot of blood. This was bad. She sat beside him and took out a needle, thread, and some bandages. Cat Noir winced at the sight, knowing how painful this was going to be, especially since she was not a nurse or doctor.
Lift your shirt,
Ladybug instructed.
No!
He whimpered, looking at the needle in her fingers as he used his left hand to cover the wound.
Cat, please! You're gonna die from blood loss if I don't,
she demanded. The tone in her voice made him hesitate, but slowly give in after a few seconds. He slowly let go of his side, revealing the wound once again, and Ladybug let out a sigh, mentally preparing herself.
Use your tail to bite on,
she frowned, knowing it was going to hurt.